Greetings. This is Hau Nguyen, and this is a continued series of making connections when teaching grammar. All right, so we've been talking about making connections and why it is necessary for instructors or teachers to make connections with everyday experiences when they teach grammar. So this is a series of this important concept. We're talking about what is grammar. So grammar is basically the rules of how language come into place. And why do teachers need to make connection? Basically, when teachers make connections, they help students to understand why they need to learn this particular concept or subject. And how do they make connections? So last video, I discussed about using dialogues with the student. So today I am focusing on teaching through context or teaching in context. And so why do we need to make sure that students need to learn grammar? Because using grammar can help students to communicate effectively, whether in physical writing or with digital text, to learn other languages and at the same time can increase their awareness of the surrounding. So for today, I want to focus on teaching in context and how this learning experience, learning module allows students to transfer knowledge to new situation. This is the important part of teaching grammar or teaching other concepts. So what does it mean to teach in context? So when teachers teach in context, they allow their student the opportunity to use their surrounding and make that connection, whether the surrounding is physical or social, institutional, or personal. So when you're teaching about, let's say you want to teach them about collective nouns, they might not understand why they have to learn about connective nouns. But if you bring in their personal experience, the institutional experience, which is the family, which makes up a collective noun, then they can understand. Integrate real life problems and solutions, integrate student backgrounds and experiences, connect relevance and significance of the contents. Remember, we're teaching through context. Context helps the student to understand why they are learning this particular lesson. The lesson itself is the content. The student needs to know why they learn the content. So by giving students opportunity to reflect, opportunity to see relevancy and relationship, opportunity to transfer knowledge, opportunity to learn beyond the academic lens, then we are teaching in context with the contents. So again, so let's say you plan to teach students a lesson on how the weather, how plants, animals, and including humans can cause changes to the environment. So you're teaching about erosion, but you don't show the student the physical aspect of erosion. Like, for example, integrate with the surrounding environment. So when you're teaching about how the weather can cause change to the environment, so perhaps, let's say you're at the school, you take them outside and walk around and find places that may be a potential for erosion, or do an experiment about erosion and what caused erosion to take place. So you're integrating the physical surrounding with the lesson that you teach on the content relating to changes to the environment. So when you're able to use the physical aspect, you are helping them to understand why they need to learn. For example, let's say on a particular day, you want to take the students out for recess and it's rain. That is a teachable moment to help them understand how rain, which is part of the weather, can cause change to the environment. So they need to understand how too much rain can affect the grass, how too much rain can affect the people. All right. So we can help to make connect how humans can be a part of changes, whether they are positive or negative, because sometimes change can be positive, sometimes change can be negative. So it depends on the situations. All right. So we can help students to understand the causes and the effects of the activities that humans, that plants, that animals, that weather can cause change to the environment. So when we help the student to see why, and not just presenting the content themselves, we need to help them to understand why something causes what and what. They'd be able to understand why they are learning about whether or not the weather can cause change to the environment and why they need to learn this particular lesson. The goal here is to help them learn so they can take what they learn about the weather and change to the environment and apply in new situation. That is the goal of teaching in context, so they can apply in new situation. So for example, I'm teaching a grammar lesson on using collective nouns. Again, if I put this objective on the board, some students may not understand what these words in this sentence mean. But if I can use the I can statement, which is a shorter way to connect the student with understanding what they need to learn, then we can transmit this learning target to their thinking, and they can remember what they are learning. So I like to use the I can statement. So for the lesson about collective noun, first we can ask the student to think about the pictures here. So there are 4 images. Ask them to come up with words about each particular image here. So they might say family, a teacher, a team, a player. Then have them to work in pairs, work in small group, asking them, what makes a family a family? And how does a team, or how does a team form or take place? Ask students to share stories about their family makeup. What makes up their family? By incorporating the physical environment, we can ask about the birds. What makes the birds to have a family? The dogs, the cats. We can integrate institutional organization like family, like a team, a church, a mosque. So ask students to share opportunities or experiences when they were in a team or when they play solely as a player. So after that, we move on. Invite the student to engage in this conversation, in this dialogue. So they can work in a pair, or they can work in a group of 3, a small group, and take time to read. So for the students who may not have the knowledge to read this conversation, you might do a model, you read it out loud, and then pair the student with the other students who can read. That way, everyone has a chance to participate in this dialogue. So the dialogue is about the experience at the aquarium. So chances are many students have been to the aquarium. Some may not, but many of them have. And so if those students who have not been to the aquarium, perhaps this is a teachable moment, and you can show them a virtual field trip by engaging them to observe a video about the aquarium and the animals that live in the aquarium. So if that does not happen, move forward with this dialogue. So the dialogue talks about dolphin and how they swim together in a group that called a pod. Okay. So instead of say a group of animal, of dolphin, we can use the word pod. Okay. So we're introducing vocabulary. We're introducing opportunity for students to learn in context. So the next time when they see a group of dolphins swimming at the aquarium, or they happen to go to a vacation and they're traveling somewhere in the ocean and they happen to see a group of dolphins, they can remember, say, oh, this is a pod. Make the connection in new situation. Ask students to think of something they may have in school or at home that must be together as a group. So they might come up with words like a pair of shoes, a pair of glasses, a pair of socks, a deck, or a pack of cards, a packet of papers, a bunch of grapes, a bundle of sticks, a gallery of pictures, a box of candles, a batch of bread, a flight of stairs, and a library of books. These are just a few that they may potentially come up with. All right. And ask them what makes them to be a collective noun. What makes them as a group? So can they have just one shoe, or they need to have a pair of shoes? So after asking them why these words are collective nouns, invite them to work in pairs and draw 1 or 2 pictures that represent a group of people, animals, or things. Encourage them not to use what we already presented. Invite them to share the drawing, explain why the image is or are collective nouns, and how does and if they see what they draw in everyday situation. Invite them to make meaningful sentence with the collective noun from the image they draw. So after they do that, See, when you invite them to make meaningful sentence with the collective noun, you bring this lesson to another lesson. You have them to form sentences. That's another lesson already. So you're actually teaching two lessons at the same time. So after you've done this, it's time for you to bring to a closure, review with the student. What is the purpose of collective nouns and why do we use it in everyday situation? So explain to them why there's a need for a family. Why do we need to say a team instead of a person or people? All right. So then ask some of them to identify a few new collective nouns if they can think of. Invite them to play a game called Odd One Out. So for this activity, students will travel to two stations. So you will have one station with collective nouns, another station with the images without the words of the collective nouns. Their task is to graph the words, 3 from one station, 3 from another station. The images must connect with the collective nouns and share with the class. So that's the end of this part of the lesson on teaching in context. So if we're not making the connection, if we're not helping the student to see the value in what they are learning, they are not able to understand why they use it, and they may not be able to apply what they learn in new situations.